Hello and well met. This is Founder Laerun with Fantasy Grounds Academy. I want to say hello and let you know that we are going to be going over the Strixhaven, a curriculum of chaos material for the DnD5e rule set. I'm using the latest version of Fantasy Grounds Unity, and I also wanted to thank Smiteworks and the social media team for the support and the backing. And I'm going to go through some of the content that is put out in the Fantasy Grounds virtual tabletop format. The research that I'd done was my own, so I didn't go through and scavenge other people's work. I actually did a little of my own homework, and also I've got some custom content that I've put together myself. And not to mention, in my library, if I go down to the bottom right, I have the adventure loaded and also the supplement loaded. So there's two different books that you're getting. The adventure is basically just mainly that, all the adventure parts, and then the actual supplement has the new content for races and feats and backgrounds and such. So there's a lot of new stuff that's been added. It's a pretty nice layout. The art is wonderful. I think that the Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast have the right idea in capitalizing on the artwork and some of the lore that comes from the Magic the Gathering content. So kudos to them for trying to incorporate those together. I think it's a good move business-wise. I'm not sure about the popularity of both types of games being, combined, but I do like the artwork for sure. Okay, so one thing I want to clear up right off straight away is that a lot of people have said that the curriculum of chaos is just another Harry Potter or Hogwarts type thing. In a sense it is, but I've actually done a little research on this, and there's really, only a few things that are kind of copycat, if you want to look at it that way. I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence about it, but my opinion is that, there's a few things I wanted to go over to kind of get around that fact. And so that's the first thing I'm going to cover, actually, is some of the differences and the good things about the setting and what can be done with it. So then I'll start showing the actual content, and I got some characters that I built and that sort of thing. So I didn't want to rehash what everyone else is already doing. Kind of want to do our own thing for our community. Also do like a Fantasy Grounds type thing and make sure that that we have something that's a little bit more interesting and less about just showing the pictures and stuff. So Strixhaven, the word is an owl. Strix is actually an owl, so it's probably Owlhaven. Also, there's the new Owlin race, so if you are interested in playing a new race, there's a new owl folk. I looked at the Unearthed Arcana version, and I looked at the actual content that comes with the module, and they are a little different, so I'll show you what they changed. So let's get this part over. So similar to Hogwarts? No, not really. So the setting has just been released, so there's a lot of people kind of talking about, they haven't even seen the content until recently, or they assume it's one thing and it's actually not. So what we're looking at here is that the Magic the Gathering setting has a Strixhaven IP that their intellectual property for that, and they've decided to port it over to D&D because it's very very compatible. So the initial criticisms is that the Strixhaven is just another Harry Potter copycat. Well, sort of and sort of not. So Hogwarts is basically a wizard school. It kind of teaches mages based on their classes and such, and the wizard school kind of goes into that, but it's not quite. So they have, for Hogwarts, you have potion making, dark arts, transfiguration, charms, etc. So you really don't learn much else outside of the real world of magic. Strixhaven actually has a curriculum, and it just has like a magical flair. So there's literature, math, biology, history, and art. And then there's a backdrop of magical majors intermeshed with it. So they have some kind of, comparable courses, but, you can't really have two schools of magic that share the same subject matter. So guess we'll never really visit another mage college in this setting again. Otherwise, they're all going to be ripoffs of Harry Potter by default. So that alone kind of tells me that it's not quite. I don't think it was intended to do that. Hogwarts only has 4 houses, and Strixhaven has 5. So if you are going to look at the content, there are 5 houses or colleges that you can join, depending on your flavor and what you like. So you don't have Slytherin and all that. They're different. Hogwarts kind of shoehorns you into the house based on the whims of a magical hat. But in this magical setting for Strixhaven, you choose your house and you choose a major based on help from the house-based mentors. So when you start the college, they kind of bring you in and they talk to you and stuff, and you're not really just picking out it randomly from a hat. The only really basic, blatant tropes that really tie the 2 franchises together is maybe Zamoni, which is a lot like Hermione, and then Killian, he's sort of like the stereotypical bad boy Malfoy. So if it's just an NPCs anyways that you can use for the game. You don't have to use them. And Strixhaven actually means owl house, and Hogwarts uses owl male. So those are a little difference there. And what wizards do like to have their owl familiars. So the Auric are basically the Death Eaters, which is similar to the Harry Potter franchise. So fair enough, but there are not that many similarities. I think the principle of it is similar, but a lot of the finer details is not. So if you look at the entire faculty of Strixhaven, you can't draw too many comparisons to any of the teachers in Hogwarts. So maybe this whole misjudgment could have been circumnavigated if the 5 founder dragons had names like maybe they had called it Drakeshaven or the Wyvern University or something like that. Maybe it's just because some people just see the Strix or the Owlins and have a knee-jerk convulsion, assuming it has to be the same as Hogwarts. But in conclusion, the main argument is simply that these similarities are just for the initial perception of it. So if you're not familiar, you're not educated, maybe even partially ignorant to the fact, you'll find that it is different. And if you read any of the articles detailing the actual lore behind the colleges and about the NPCs, you'll see that there's very little in common between Strixhaven and Hogwarts. So Hogwarts does not even mean Strixhaven, and worst, maybe only 25% familiar or similar. So just kind of get that out of the way. That's something I wanted to clarify. So let's get into the actual lore and the content and the stuff that you're going to be seeing in the actual module and how it's presented in Fantasy Grounds. So we have the owl folk, the Owlin, which are really cool, kind of a cute, kind of anthropomorphic race. They have arms and legs like other humanoids. They have wings. They can fly. They don't make too much sound when they move or fly, which is kind of one of their features. And they're nocturnal, but they don't have to be. So I kind of put together an image. It's kind of a collage of different images from the actual content, but then these Owlin or owl-based creatures or something I kind of threw in there just give you an idea of what we're looking at. So these are just some random art that I found online. These are not included in the actual content, except for maybe this owl on the bottom. So each college has its own theme, its own mascots, that sort of thing. So it was founded about 700 years ago in the timeline of Strixhaven by 5 spellcasting dragons. So Strixhaven University is the premier institution for a plane or an area called Archivos. It's a place of magical learning. And it draws promising young mages from all around the planes to study in its halls. So the idea is that regardless of which world you're in, you'll be able to either attend or connect it somehow. You can put it in Forgotten Realms or Sigil or anything like that. I listened to an episode recently of Dragon Talk, and they were discussing that. Strixhaven's divided into 5 colleges, which we mentioned earlier. Each has its own campus, faculty, and magical specialties. Each of the 5 colleges focuses on the clashing of 2 mana colors. So you have the silver quill in white and black, Prismari in blue and red, Witherbloom in black and green, Lorehold in red and white, and Quandrix in green and blue. So the mission of Strixhaven University is to discover and preserve magical knowledge. To disseminate that knowledge from one generation to the next, promote the free and open study of magic in all its forms, and enhance the lives of people throughout the planes through the use of magic. So this place would appeal to anyone that is a spellcaster or has latent spellcasting abilities. So you don't have to be a wizard to go here. There's plenty of things for, half casters, or even a ranger might go there depending on what his needs are. Around the campus, there are 5 lines of these beacon-like towers that radiate out of the center of Strixhaven like enormous spokes, and they stretch more than 100 miles out into the surrounding countryside. These torches of enlightenment burn eternally with magical flame, symbolizing the path toward learning and an escape from ignorance. The 5 lines converge at the Biblioplex, which is their main library. So I'm going to bring up an image of the campus. So I think these are the actual causeways. So if you look at, if I can zoom in, you'll see these torches. And those are basically the pathway that leads to the central area where the university is. And then all the campuses are illustrated on the outside. I really like this picture. It kind of has that watercolor look to it. There is another photo that's similar, but it actually shows a little bit more detail. It's not as artistic, but it does have it's more of a digital quality to it. So if you look at this, it's kind of more of a representation of the different campuses, and then of course the main university and the library in the center, and there's also a stadium. And no, it is not Quidditch. So that's basically what the college kind of thing is laid out. It's kind of got a neat way of presenting each represented philosophy and the school of study and such. So it's interesting, and I think each one of these colleges might appeal to different people that play the game. So that's an interesting thing that can actually happen. Oh, so this is like board? Yeah, I guess so. I mean, Zell, it is, but I think the idea, the premise of it is kind of been taken from that actual thing, but I really believe that it's more intended to be closer to like a D&D or something like that, as opposed to a movie franchise. Let's see. So the Mage Tower that exists in Strixhaven is basically a competitive team sport played by mage students at Strixhaven. Each of the 5 colleges fields its own team and brings a mascot creature that also plays in the scoring rules. Mage Tower is the main spectator sport at Strixhaven, drawing huge crowds of fans from the university and beyond. So I guess that could be kind of parallel to the Harry Potter content. So the rules of this Mage Tower assembly, and let me bring up the picture of that. Let's see, where is that? We have a nice little picture of this looks like a stadium type thing. So this is the stadium that we're talking about, and the Mage Tower game is what's being played here on the field. So you have different rules in this area, so that when you're playing, there's some things that you have to keep in mind. So the 2 opposing teams meet in the stadium. Each team is composed of 5 mages, plus 1 small mascot creature. Each team has a tall tower at their end of the stadium with their mascot creature at the top. So it's probably kind of like capture the flag. The goal is to score a point by stealing the opposing team's mascot and transporting it back to your own tower. All magic that would harm a player, mascot, or spectator, or that would damage the stadium or basic rules of the game in any way is nullified. So there is some regulation. Otherwise, all magic's legal, subject to the review of the Mage Tower Referee Council. The game lasts for 3 phases. Each phase lasts as long as it takes for the Mage Tower hourglass to empty, which is approximately 20 minutes or so. Sometimes the last few grains of sand in the hourglass take their sweet time to roll around and drop into the bottom. When time is called at the end of the third phase, the team with the most points wins. And what they have here is a list of different mascots. So like the Loreholds, they have tribute to a spirit-like statue. So here's an image of some of the examples. So there's the spirit statue. The Quandrix have a fractal equation type looking thing, and that's this snake-like creature up here on the top left. Silverquill has a white and black inkling kind of blob thing, and that's down here on the bottom left. The Prismari have an elemental kind of, their colors are blue and red, and this would be in the center here. And then the Witherbloom have these little pest worms, and they're kind of associated with like the swamp and that sort of thing, and their colors are black and green. So there's some pretty cool themes going on, and when you are a mage or you're part of the college, you actually get a at 3rd or 4th level you get a feature where you actually get one of these as like a companion. So the companions can be built in Fantasy Grounds. It would be similar to like if you had an animal creature, or if like you were a beastmaster or something like that. So you'd have to have there's probably an NPC template, and then you would just build based off the template. It'd be very similar to what has been done in the previous content for Fizban's Treasury of Dragons. So it would kind of be handled like that as far as Fantasy Grounds goes. It looks like some of the notable locations are actually the university itself, which is the main central focus. So the campus stretched across the horizon. It has an intricate tangle of gleaming towers and flattened rooftops. So that's basically where the main part of the university is. There's the Dawn Bow, which is a massive arch of jagged stones that they float over the campus of Strixhaven. The ends of each stone point toward the ground, smooth and flat. So I think that picture I had earlier, which showed those things. Let's see, where are they? And yeah, here's the alternate cover. If you haven't seen that yet, if you go out and buy the actual hardback book, that's the alternate cover. It's pretty cool. And here's an NPC. This is Murgaxgor Grenshell. He's like a frog creature or some kind of, I don't know exactly what he is yet, but anyway, so these things, they float in the air, and they are part of the Strixhaven backdrop. There's a lot of interesting things. So like these jagged stones here would represent those. So then you have the Bow's End, which is a pub that exists. The Biblioplex, which is in the center, is a vast library. It's said to hold the knowledge of the multiverse. So it's an enormous dome building that rises above the rest of the campus. So it's pretty good sized place. And I think with some of the artwork that I dug up, there was some really cool looking buildings that exist in here. So there's different campuses, and they all have their own unique look. And I'm going to bring that up. So here's some of the campuses here. So this is the Biblioplex, and these are some of the other campuses from the other colleges. And then they're all kind of circling around the main campus for the university. So you have all the colleges, and then you have the university in the center with the library and the stadium and probably most of the faculty, or at least the main faculty. So that is basically some of the places that exist here. Is in the actual campuses, they have their own little locations that would come into play, provided that you are part of that or you've traveled to this area. So honestly, I think that you could plug this into just about any campaign setting. I don't know how you would necessarily include it if you were going to come out of something like Curse of Strahd or something like that. But it could be that you would travel there for an adventure and just kind of use it as a backdrop. But if you're going to start from first level or in the beginning, there's a whole adventure designed around that fact that you can take classes You actually get a job, you have sort of an income, and you build your character up. In the first couple sessions, you would be like a session 0. You would establish your college, your field of study. I mean, it gets into, a little bit into economics, with having a job and that sort of thing. So it's kind of interesting that they've given that sort of attention to detail for such a new set of information. I don't think this has really been done. I think some of the previous editions of D&D have had guilds and that sort of thing, but I've never seen them do a full-fledged college with, and have all this extra stuff. So you're not just getting artwork and more in another setting. You're getting a lot of lore and things that you could very easily adapt to pretty much any world that you would throw at it, is in regards to the DnD5e rule set. But I'm sure that you could adapt to anything if you know what you're doing and you have the experience. The lower campus is the Lorehold campus, has a lecture hall. There's an effigy row, which is the main campus area. There's the Prismari campus, which is down here. Looks pretty cool. I like it. Let's see. There is also the Quandrix campus, the Silverquill campus, which is really, really nice looking, and Witherbloom, which is this kind of swampy looking area, which is up here in the upper right corner. And then you can see there's symbology that's related to each one of the colleges. So they have a theme, they have a look, they have a mascot. So it's just kind of like the whole university thing. So the founding dragons, there was 5 of them. They were the ones who set up the colleges and the Strixhaven the Strixhaven curriculum and all the staff. They've helped hire them, and they attracted a lot of different people from all over the planes. So there's a bunch of staff and faculty, a bunch of professors that are NPCs. There's some notable students that you might throw at or use during your campaign. So it gives you quite a bit of content to work through. I don't see, somebody just jumping right into this unless they're starting off at first level. Personally, I think that, if you're low level or low enough level, you might journey here and do a stint in school for a while. But as far as, adding this to another campaign, I think a quest that was given by Strixhaven that pulls your players into the mechanizations of what's going on. Maybe you're helping a bunch of students or something like that. So I think that would be fun. That would make a lot of sense if you've already got something going on. It'd be a good way to incorporate that. So that's that part of it. So I get kind of babbled enough about lore, showed you some pictures. There's the alternate cover. And this is just some posters that I made for the actual content. So that is the majority of the beginnings of it. So let's get into the actual content. So what you're getting with this content is there's 2 modules. So you get the adventure itself, which has the encounters, NPCs, magic items, that sort of thing, and a reference manual that you can use to look up different things. So you'll notice that in this, the first 2 chapters are in the non-adventure module, which is basically the supplement part of it. And if you go to the reference manual there, this actually gives you the content and the lore for running the college. It talks about the magical studies, the faculty. So the first couple chapters is dedicated to learning about the college and how it works and some of the mechanics that might be involved with that. And then you have character options. So in this, Strixhaven draws a student body from across the world or many worlds. With your DM's permission, you can create just about any Strixhaven character you can imagine, drawing on player character rules from the Player's Handbook or other D&D books. This chapter adds to that wealth of options with material in the following sections. So you have a race option. You choose a college. There's some Strixhaven backgrounds. There are some feats. There are spells, some unique ones that for each college, and then there's a couple other themed ones, and magic items. And then they also throw in some equipment too. So you're not just getting a couple NPCs, you're getting quite a bit of stuff. So if you go to the items area and you use a drop down, you'll see there's a couple sections here. One is for the magical stuff that's kind of themed for the colleges. And then the other group is for all the mundane stuff and some of the normal things. And so some are unique to the colleges and some are more, universal. You're also getting parcels, so any and all treasure or things that are worthy or basically, sellable or collectible, those are created into parcels, so you can award those to your players or you can hand them out however you want to do it. So all those are created for you in Fantasy Grounds. All the encounters are built for the actual adventure, and if you go to encounters, you'll notice it starts at Chapter 3, which is where the actual adventures start. Like Chapter 1 and 2 is dedicated to the setting and kind of getting that set up for your players, provided they're going to be students. And you go into the images itself, you have a couple sections for Chapter 0, which is your intro and your covers and that sort of thing. And then when you start getting into these other chapters in the images, you're going to be looking at some of the campuses. There's even a little bit more detailed maps on what the campuses look like, which is pretty cool. There's a symbology for each one, or the heraldry. And then when you get to Chapter 3, you're going to start actually getting pictures of NPCs and story elements and that sort of thing. So it's a little laid out a little differently than most of your traditional adventures because of the college theme and some of the things that they would ask you to do in regards to joining the college and becoming a part of that whole culture of playing. So looks pretty cool. I like the way that they laid that out. I think it's pretty cool. I mean, I'm not paid to say this. I really looked at the content and I've kind of done my research, and it's not bad. It's a very good tool set to have in your bag if you want to do something different, or if you want to incorporate this into one of your homebrew adventures. I think it would work great. Like I said before, in my opinion, I think that to incorporate this in a campaign that's already going, I would probably throw it in between two adventures and make it a kind of a thing where your players have to help some of the students obtain their goals or help them study or whatever. So that's kind of cool. You got lots of imagery in here. They did not skimp on the artwork. So a lot of this artwork is really done well. There's a lot of it. So if you like pictures and stuff, there's tons of that. It looks to me like they've gone the extra mile on the artwork. They have a ton of different things that they present to you. As far as the story goes, the story doesn't really pick up until Chapter 3, which is the introduction, and there's some small adventures when you're first starting off, like 0 level or level 1. And as you go up in levels, you also get closer to graduating and you go up in your student status. These adventures get a little bit more difficult, a little bit more challenging, and they're kind of based off of when you pass your exams and that sort of thing. So as you graduate in the college, you're also graduating into more difficult and more challenging adventures. So there are a few adventures that are themed around the actual college and graduating and actually attending the school. So there's quite a bit of content in here, and there's plenty of adventures to be had, and I don't think you really necessarily have to run it from back to back. I think it has just enough stuff in here to throw in. Even if you just want the owl creature, it's got that. So that's what you're getting. So you're getting 2 books. Well, it's actually 1 book. It's split in half. So one has the character options and one has the actual adventure. So that's what you're getting in Fantasy Grounds. So you're getting the whole book, but they split it in half, so you don't have to load the whole entire content if you don't need to. So let's look at the Owlin creature, or the actual character. So I'm going to go to the characters group, and I have 2 versions. So this one is the Unearthed Arcana version that came out a few months ago. And then this is the official one. They look the same, but they're a little different. So if you created content based off of the old Owl Folk, which is what they featured in Unearthed Arcana, there's been some changes. So just to let you know that the backgrounds have been added. There was no actual backgrounds before. So when I built this Owlin in a test format, I chose Cloistered Scholar, but actually, since this student is going to be from Lorehold, I actually picked the Lorehold background. And what that does is it adds some proficiency, some equipment, some language. You get 2 of your choice. You get a feature called Lorehold Initiate, which gives you some unique spells that are specific to that college or to that theme. And then you have a trinkets table, which is linked to the college. And then you also have some personality traits that you can add in addition to any other traits that you have. They only have personality. They don't have all the other, the bonds and flaws and such. So you can add this personality as one of your secondary or make up your own. The other thing is the Owlin. When I first started checking this out, the Owl Folk was what was in the UA module. But in the actual content, there's an Owlin and an Owlin variant. And the variant is you can pick a small or a medium creature, which probably changes some of your stats around and some of your capabilities. But I picked the regular medium Owlin, and that gave me a choice between small or medium. And then you also, when you pick a wizard, there is a subclass that you can choose to like an archetype, basically, and it's tied in with the college. So when you go to your abilities tab on your character sheet, the official Owl Folk, you get your standard. These are 4th level, by the way. So you get your standard score improvements, arcane recovery, arcane tradition. So all those are similar. But you have a Lorehold initiate, which gives you some extra spells for this particular college. They also have minor alchemy, so that just comes along with that's a feature you get. This one just happens to be an abjure or that sort of thing. So this particular character picked the school of transmutation, and then you have your spellcasting feature, which basically details how that works, which is a standard thing. And then the transmutation savant comes with the actual class. So they changed the way that this works. From the UA, you actually had a wizard or a mage of Lorehold, and it changed it was like a subclass the way they handled it. So I kind of like that. I wish they would have kept that, but that's okay. It's not a big deal. So as far as the traits go, though, you have the creature type, which in this case they say you're humanoid. You have flight, which is equal to your walking speed. You can't use it if you're wearing medium or heavy armor. Silent feathers, you basically get the stealth skill. And then, of course, you get your regular wizard proficiencies and your languages. So not a whole lot of difference there, just some flavor and the flight, of course. And then you have your college-specific background and features and feats and stuff. So that's kind of cool. It gives you another race to play, and you also have another direction for a wizard. So you can kind of customize it, but make it still a part of a campaign and not be stuck just in this little microbiome here. So that's kind of how the UA was set up. Was it basically became testing for this particular class. Looks like they removed the gaining the Ancient Companion. So this was a feature that you would get. I think you can still do that at 4th level. You can pick a feat, whereas in the UA, it just kind of gave it to you at 4th level. So if you go to the feats area, and instead of doing an ability score increase, you can go to the Strixhaven group here, and you can pick a mascot, which at 4th level, you have learn how to summon a mascot to you. So you can get this at 4th level instead of ability ASI. And that's what they balanced out, is instead of just giving that to you at 4th level, you actually have to, swap it out in a sense, because I don't really give it to you right away. But the Strixhaven Initiate is something that you get, and that basically gives you 2 from Light, Sacred Flame, and Thaumaturgy. So you have certain spells that you can pick out that come with the university that you study with. So this would be chosen at 1st level. So there's some pretty interesting changes and things. Oh, shit. So that is something that you would probably want to look at and consider when you're building a wizard's. Maybe they had graduated from Strixhaven, or perhaps not. I mean, it just depends on your setting. So those are the feats. So those come with the Strixhaven Initiate. Kind of comes in when you pick a college, and then the mascot thing comes at 4th level, or in this case, you might get it at 1st. It depends on your character build, but the mascots basically do some. They have each has a unique feature. There's stat blocks for them. When you take an attack action on your turn, you can forego one of your attacks, and your mascot or familiar can make one of the attacks of its own. If your mascot's within 60 feet, you can swap places with it. I mean, like a teleportation type thing. So it's kind of cool. So that you kind of like have a companion option if you're so inclined. And let's see what else we have. So just basically from there on, the characters are very similar. They're not a whole lot different than a standard wizard. You just have a couple features and abilities that are a little different, and spell lists are a little different. So when you go into your spells, there's actually categories for each school. So if you go to the Strixhaven, there's a couple new spells. This is Borrowed Knowledge, which is a 2nd level divination spell. Silvery Barb. So each college has its own unique spell that's researched and used for each caster type or each college type. So Wither and Bloom, you can invoke both death and life upon a 10-foot radius sphere centered on a point within range. So a lot of these are flavor. They might be very similar to other spells, but it's kind of cool that they have their own unique flavor for the campaign setting. So that's basically the characters. I mean, you're getting a lot of new items. You're getting the owl race, and you're getting a couple feats and a bunch of magic items, and you're getting a lot of NPCs. Let's take a look at those. So if I go to the NPCs section and open up the content here, and I'm going to select the Strixhaven group, there's quite a few. There's 4 pages or more worth. So if I stretch this out, yeah, there's 4 pages worth of NPCs. A lot of these are students and instructors, but you have the fire snake creature, which is probably unique to this setting. You come back in here, you have the different NPCs that are part of the content, so maybe part of the adventure. You also have the pest mascot. So here's the little NPC I was telling you about that you might be able to control if you have the feat. And it looks like there are some repeated monsters, not too many. And there's some like the Shambling Mound and the Shrieker. Those are probably in the adventure. So it looks like you won't actually need to have the monster manual. If you don't own it and you just have like the player's handbook and the DM's guide, you could probably get away with just this module or the SRD monster manual. And then there's some Witherbloom stuff here. It looks like a Witherbloom Professor of Growth. So it looks like there's some, yeah, this is pretty powerful creature. Just keep in mind that these stat blocks are very similar to the way they used to be, but they are now putting them in as innate spell casting for the time being because of the changes that's going on in the actual rules and such. So they didn't put them in as you would see in the typical way. So they spellcasters and how that's handled in Fantasy Grounds is changing. So they're putting spells in as innate abilities for right now until they get that worked out. But that's kind of how it's going to be. Is they're changing the way spell castings work. So you won't see the proficiencies as much anymore. It'll more or less be like a power or some sort of ability as opposed to that. So these are just some of the minor changes. So if you've been following the Wizards of the Coast lately, they've changed quite a few things on how they want to handle their spell casting and such. So they have this Verdant Lash, which is probably something new that is added to this particular NPC. So this professor has his own like signature attack, and then the avatar summoning here. So there are some subtle changes that are coming, and as time goes on, we'll see how that pans out for at least for Fantasy Grounds. I think pen and paper won't be too hard to change that over, but Fantasy Grounds would take probably a little bit more work because you have to change some of the wording and such around. And I know they're rebuilding the character builder, and there's some other NPC stat block changes and stuff that have to evolve. I wouldn't worry too much about it. This is their bread and butter, so they're definitely going to be working on that if they're not already. So that is basically the majority of the content that I wanted to show. I don't want to show everything because I don't want to give half the content away. I've given out quite a bit of stuff there. If any of you have any questions, I'm willing to take a look at that. Love the Owlin, so glad they're an option. Hello. So this is a borderline. Yep. Completely missed. This event was coming. Yeah, sorry about that, you guys. I tried to put it out in in social media, and it basically I just decided I was going to put this out, and I gave Smiteworks like a day of warning. They were kind enough to support me and sponsor this, so I wanted to give this out or this information out to you guys so you guys can see what basically try before you buy type thing. So if I go to the combat tracker, I have both of the characters on here, which are basically your variants that I made, one from UA and then one from the official content. So there's some subtle things that are different between the two. And one of them you could tell was built the old way, and then the new way would be the way I just created this new character today from the official content. So there's some differences between the initial Owlfolk and the ones that are released now. So that's something that you'll have to get used to as you get playing into this content. So if there's any questions or concerns or anything about the content, I don't think there's any big problems. If you notice any mistakes or anything, put that in the House of Healing. If you've noticed any, just some little errors and such. Let's see, what else do we got? I think that's a majority of it. I have to show a couple more images. So here is a Tanazir Quandrix creature-like thing. That's pretty cool. It's huge, whatever this is. Yeah, I wouldn't want to tangle with that. Some kind of mascot or creature that they're affiliated with. Let's see. So here's Velo Matches from Lorehold. So this is one of the dragons. That's what it is. These are the founding dragons that represent each one of the colleges. So they're all unique. And then there's Spirit Statue mascot from Lorehold. So if you were going to summon that, here's an example of what one might look like. So it's kind of cool. I like the content. I mean, even if it is a little bit like the HP or Harry Potter stuff, you have a lot more content here, and it's not just a couple spells. I mean, there's quite a few things in here. So I don't think it's a ripoff. In other words, if I had to put a number on it, I'd probably give it a 7 because just the artwork alone. Like I did the same thing with the Fizban's Mystery of Dragons. I gave it a 7 because just the artwork and some of the content is worth the purchase. Even if you don't like the concept of the college and all that stuff, you can still use a lot of this content in other settings and other situations. So I think it's useful for a game master, and then you have options if you ever wanted to go down the actual content. Yeah, thanks, McKigan. Hey, thanks. All right, so that is a wrap. I think that will cover some of the content that you're getting in Fantasy Grounds. I think it's presented pretty well. I'm not disappointed. I think that they've done a pretty good job adapting it over. And that most things don't always come straight over from content to Fantasy Grounds. They have to do a lot of resizing of images. They have to rewrite some of the things so it works with Fantasy Grounds. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into converting these. But from what I can see, it looks pretty good. I don't see a lot of problems. I think it's well worth the investment if you're a game master and you want to have more content, or even if you're a player, you want to try your hand at running a character through the college. That would be fun. And never know, you could retire or leave the college early and go on a regular adventure. So you can start off at the curriculum of Chaos and Strixhaven and then go on to some other adventures. So I don't think you're stuck here. It's kind of up to your game master and your creativity and the time that you want to put into it. So thanks everyone for showing up. So magical schools have been a staple. Yes, I agree. And they, to be honest, William, a lot of that has not really been played up too much. I mean, if you think about it, when you create a wizard, lately anyways, it doesn't really delve into that too much. And I think that this is a good way to at least give you an example of how you might do that. So you can make your own college with your own schools. You can use the necromancy school and kind of do your own thing. You don't have to use what they have. But I agree that college and schools are kind of it's more of a lore background thing than it is an adventure. And I think that's kind of cool to make an adventure out of your learning process. And that's kind of what we do at the Academy is we want people to learn and play and develop and create and all that other stuff that goes along with learning the hobby and getting used to it and playing with others and hanging out and stuff, playing rolling some dice and such. And Fantasy Grounds gives you an option to do that online or face to face. So it's a good platform to experience the content with. It may have some little quirks and such, but all in all, it's pretty robust. So I like the Strixhaven, and I just noticed I spelt this wrong. Curriculum instead of curriculum. How silly. Spell check. So anyways, the curriculum of Chaos instead of the curriculum. Anyways, that's a little boo-boo I made there when I was creating this. And this was also a few weeks ago when I created that banner. So I probably didn't proofread it. So yeah, so this is kind of cool. I like it. I think it's worth the investment. A good Christmas present if you haven't already thought about it. Also, just remember next year they're going to start releasing all the new rule books, so things are going to be getting changed around quite a bit. All right, so again, everyone, happy holidays. I want to know or see or visit with you during this month of December. I hope that you guys have a good vacation if you have any coming up. I myself am looking to get a new job. I'm actually applying at Blue Origin, and yeah, no problem, Brian. And then I'm also hoping to get back on the bandwagon because I've been jobless since this coronavirus thing. So I want to get back into the swing of things, and I want to make a difference in this world. So I'm going to do that through this Fantasy Grounds platform, and I'm going to do it through my job. Build a road to space. So everybody have a good holiday, and I will see you. There's a few events in our college if you haven't, or in the what we now call the Academy. Yeah, no problem. So basically the way we formatted was to have a calendar online, and we managed it from there. Now we've moved everything back into the Discord. So the Discord will basically be where we schedule everything. So if you're looking for classes, come on into Discord. That's where we have them up near the top left. We've did an article, announcements, all sort of things. Yep. Thank you, Will. And Belle, thank you for your support and checking out the chat. and doing the social media tweets. And Brad, if you're out there, thanks. And Doug, thank you for sponsoring. So take care, everyone, and I will see you next time. And I think my next event that I'm running is a map tools class, I believe. So if you want more exposure and learn how to use